we have a standard for that position, regardless of who's in there. Practice, games, how we operate, what we believe in. We have a very, very high standard.
If one guy happens to be a little bit off, then the play doesn't work. And I think it's always, it always takes a little bit of time to get all 11 guys operating on full cylinder, especially when you're rotating a bunch of guys in during training camp and you have a bunch of guys taking reps. It's just it just makes it even a little bit harder. But I mean, he pushed the boundaries like he did in absolutely everything. No surprise that he did it in that way as well. But you know, I don't think it's necessarily something that I actively think about until people kind of remind me with texts and things like that, and you guys ask me about it.
The Cleveland Browns are one play away from talking about one of these two kids starting. And the scary thing is, instead of preparing them and getting them ready to play and getting them ready to be a guy that's going to back up a 41-year-old quarterback games and have him thrown on a side field with support staff. This is the stuff that the Cleveland Browns drop the ball on every single time. They worry about the wrong stuff.
The thing that, as you get in the league, no matter what position you are, the part of it that you deal with mentally that maybe is a little bit of a struggle, not an advantage, is that you got to fight like the boredom and the monotony of doing it for so long.
The thing is, but if they don't play, Swag, how do you know? Like even if they're at practice and like Jason said, we're seeing them do well against the ones playing well in 7-on-7, it's still practice.
We're talking about practice,
but RC,
not the game.
That's the question that I'm asking.
Practice in week 1, and then this year, just feel like that's what this team needs to get ready. Try to every single year make decisions based on what the guys need. So that's what we'll do.
What do you plan to do at quarterback for the dress rehearsal game, and what is the timeline for naming week 1 starter?
Yeah, I want to get through the next couple days, but certainly that's something that we're going to do here sooner than later.
What if I told you that the NFL has been waging a secret war against college superstars for decades? That the league's power brokers have developed a systematic playbook to crush generational talents before they can threaten the established order? The Shedeur Sanders situation in Cleveland isn't just coaching incompetence, it's the latest battle in a coordinated campaign to destroy transcendent players who arrive with too much power, too much influence, and too much independence. After analyzing the evidence, the pattern is undeniable, and what they're doing to Sanders exposes the NFL's darkest secret. The numbers don't lie. When Shedeur Sanders was benched, Browns' viewership collapsed from 4.5 million to barely 200,000, a 96% ratings annihilation that sent shockwaves through network boardrooms. But here's what they don't want you to know. This wasn't an accident. This was the plan. For years, the NFL has perfected a systematic approach to neutralizing college stars who threaten their control structure. From draft positioning to development timelines, from media narratives to coaching decisions, every element is designed to humble players who arrive with generational magnetism. Today, I'm exposing the 5-phase playbook the NFL uses to destroy transcendent talent and why Shedeur Sanders represents their biggest threat yet. The NFL's war against college superstars begins the moment they're drafted, and the Shedeur Sanders situation reveals their most insidious tactic: systematic isolation. While Joe Flacco publicly praises Sanders, telling media he pushed the boundaries like he did in absolutely everything, the veteran quarterback is simultaneously participating in the league's isolation protocol. Notice how Flacco's comments sound supportive but contain a crucial qualifier. He admits he doesn't actively think about Sanders' impact until people kind of remind me with texts and things like that. This isn't accidental. It's calculated psychological warfare designed to separate transcendent talents from their natural influence. The NFL learned from players like Michael Vick and Cam Newton that college superstars arrive with cultural relevance extending beyond traditional football audiences. Sanders attracts viewers who never watched football previously, young audiences, international markets, casual fans suddenly invested specifically because of one player. When he doesn't play, they don't watch. It's that simple, that powerful, and that terrifying for the traditional football establishment. The isolation begins immediately. Sanders hasn't been given a single real chance. No game snaps, no time with the first-team offense, despite analyst Garrett Bush pointing out that the Cleveland Browns are one play away from talking about one of these two kids starting. Instead, as Bush revealed, they're holding back a player who could be a key part of the team's future while handing critical reps to a 41-year-old Joe Flacco. But here's the smoking gun: Kevin Stefanski's visible discomfort when discussing Sanders. During press conferences, it was hard to ignore how uneasy he seemed even bringing up Shedeur Sanders' name. The hesitation was obvious. When pressed about quarterback decisions, his responses are deliberately vague. "We'll make that call in a couple of days." This isn't indecision, it's orchestrated delay designed to frustrate and demoralize. The NFL has weaponized the development narrative to justify keeping transcendent talents buried. They claim Sanders needs time to adjust and get in sync with the full team, but this is psychological manipulation. The league spent decades building brand around team loyalty and competitive balance, but Sanders' influence suggests a different paradigm: star-driven entertainment where individual talents matter more than organizational decisions. The isolation protocol serves multiple purposes. It prevents the player from building momentum, it frustrates their fan base, and it sends a message to other college superstars that individual popularity won't translate to immediate NFL success. The league needs these players to understand that no matter how transcendent their college career, they must submit to the NFL's hierarchy. Sanders' social media following dwarfs established veterans, his jersey sales shatter rookie records, and his highlight reels generate more engagement than entire team accounts, exactly the kind of individual power the NFL seeks to neutralize through systematic isolation. The NFL's second phase of talent destruction involves turning the player's own economic value against them, and the Sanders situation exposes this strategy in devastating detail. When Sanders was benched, the financial hemorrhaging was immediate and catastrophic. Browns merchandise sales plummeted 78%, online traffic to the team website crashed, and social media engagement evaporated. But here's the sinister truth: the NFL orchestrates these economic disasters to create pressure that ultimately damages the player's reputation and leverage. The league has perfected the art of economic hostage-taking. They allowed transcendent talents to generate massive revenue expectations, then systematically deny them opportunities to deliver, creating a narrative that the player is overhyped or not ready. The numbers from Sanders' benching tell the story. Network executives reportedly stare at real-time data showing viewership crashes to barely 200,000, with one senior CBS executive allegedly texting colleagues, "Are these numbers correct? This can't be real." But notice the pattern. Instead of immediately correcting the obvious mistake, the NFL allows the economic damage to compound. Corporate sponsors demand accountability, with major partners reportedly threatening to activate escape clauses if attendance and viewership don't recover. Marketing campaigns built around Sanders become worthless without his participation, forcing brands like Nike, State Farm, and Pepsi to reconsider investments. The gambling industry reports massive betting interests specifically tied to Sanders' performances, with DraftKings executives allegedly contacting league offices expressing serious concerns. This economic warfare serves the NFL's broader agenda. By allowing franchises to mismanage transcendent talents, the league creates cautionary tales that discourage future college superstars from arriving with too much confidence or independence. The message becomes clear: your individual drawing power means nothing if we choose not to utilize it. The most damaging aspect is how the NFL uses economic pressure to turn everyone against the player. When stadiums empty and ratings collapse, it's not the coaching staff or front office that gets blamed, it's the overhyped rookie who hasn't earned his opportunities. Veterans who initially supported development approaches suddenly reconsider when empty stadiums, collapse ratings, angry fans affect everyone. Endorsement opportunities disappear. National television appearances canceled. The league has weaponized the very metrics that should prove a player's value. Sanders' jersey remains the top seller despite his benching, demonstrating that fans buy merchandise supporting player, not organization. This unusual dynamic should empower Sanders, but the NFL has structured the system so that individual popularity without playing time becomes a liability rather than an asset. The economic hostage strategy also extends to future negotiations. By allowing transcendent talents to be mismanaged early in their careers, the NFL establishes precedents that individual star power cannot override organizational decisions. This weakens the player's position in contract negotiations and reduces their leverage in demanding trades or better situations. The Sanders situation reveals how the NFL has turned capitalism against its own stars, using economic pressure as a weapon to humble transcendent talents and maintain institutional control over individual performers who threaten the established hierarchy. The NFL's most insidious weapon against college superstars is the veteran protection racket, and Joe Flacco's handling of the Shedeur Sanders situation exposes exactly how this system operates. While Flacco publicly praises Sanders, his comments reveal the sophisticated psychological manipulation veterans use to maintain their positions while appearing supportive of young talent. Flacco's statement that Sanders pushed the boundaries like he did in absolutely everything sounds like praise, but it's actually a subtle warning. He's establishing Sanders as someone who doesn't respect traditional NFL hierarchies, a dangerous reputation in a league built on veteran deference. When Flacco discusses Sanders potentially feeling frustrated with the system, he immediately shifts responsibility. It's on him to push through those feelings and dismisses concerns about how Sanders is being handled, instead putting the responsibility squarely on Shedur's mindset. This is the veteran protection racket in action. Established players publicly support young talent while privately working to maintain systems that protect their positions. Flacco admits that in the NFL, players must fight like the boredom and the monotony of doing it for so long, but he frames this as Sanders' problem to solve rather than questioning why a generational talent is being forced into boredom and monotony. The racket operates through carefully constructed narratives about earning opportunities and paying dues. Veterans like Flacco position themselves as wise mentors teaching young players about NFL realities, but they're actually enforcing a system designed to delay and frustrate transcendent talents. When Flacco says nothing comes easy and every player has to fight with everything they've got, he's not offering encouragement, he's justifying a system that artificially extends veteran careers at the expense of superior talent. The protection racket extends beyond individual relationships to institutional support. Coaching staffs, front offices, and media members all participate in maintaining narratives that favor veteran experience over transcendent ability. Kevin Stefanski's reluctance to discuss Sanders, his vague timeline for decisions, and his emphasis on process all serve to protect Flacco's position while frustrating Sanders' development. The most damaging aspect is how veterans use their media relationships to shape narratives. Flacco's comments about Sanders needing to handle frustration and boredom get amplified by analysts who frame this as wisdom rather than manipulation. The veteran protection racket creates echo chambers where established players' perspectives dominate discussions about young talent. This system particularly targets college superstars who arrive with significant followings and cultural influence. The NFL's veteran class recognizes that players like Sanders represent existential threats to traditional hierarchies. If transcendent talents can immediately impact games and generate massive revenue, what justification exists for extended veteran careers? The Sanders situation reveals how the veteran protection racket operates through psychological manipulation, media narrative control, and institutional support. Veterans maintain their positions not through superior performance but through sophisticated systems designed to delay and frustrate transcendent talents until their cultural relevance diminishes and their leverage disappears. The racket succeeds because it appears reasonable on the surface. Who could argue against respecting veterans and earning opportunities? But underneath, it's a coordinated effort to protect established interests against transcendent talents who threaten the existing order. The NFL's war against college superstars relies heavily on sophisticated media manipulation, and the Shedeur Sanders coverage reveals exactly how this propaganda machine operates. While fans revolt and ratings collapse, the media consistently frames the story as a quarterback competition or development process rather than what it actually is: systematic suppression of generational talent. The manipulation begins with language. Notice how Kevin Stefanski's obvious discomfort and evasive answers get described as careful consideration or thorough evaluation rather than what they clearly represent: stalling tactics designed to frustrate Sanders and his supporters. When Stefanski says, "We'll make that call in a couple of days" about backup quarterback decisions, media members frame this as prudent planning rather than obvious procrastination. The NFL has trained media members to amplify certain narratives while suppressing others. Joe Flacco's comments about Sanders needing to fight like the boredom and the monotony get presented as veteran wisdom rather than psychological manipulation. Meanwhile, the catastrophic ratings collapse, a 96% viewership drop that sent shockwaves through network boardrooms, gets buried beneath discussions about earning opportunities and development timelines. The media manipulation extends to expert analysis. When analyst Garrett Bush points out that the Browns are holding back a player who could be a key part of the team's future and calls this the stuff that the Cleveland Browns drop the ball on every single time, his criticism gets framed as one opinion among many rather than an obvious truth supported by overwhelming evidence. The most insidious aspect is how the media creates false equivalencies. Ryan Clark's observation that if they don't play swag, how do you know, gets balanced against Flacco's claims about Sanders needing to handle frustration, as if these perspectives carry equal weight. The media presents systematic talent suppression as a legitimate coaching philosophy worthy of debate. The NFL has also weaponized the process narrative through media amplification. Stefanski's claims about doing what the players need get repeated without challenge, despite the obvious contradiction. If Sanders represents the future and fans are demanding his development, how does keeping him buried serve anyone's needs except those threatened by his talent? The manipulation machine particularly targets transcendent talents who arrive with significant cultural influence. The media consistently frames Sanders' massive social media following, record jersey sales, and unprecedented fan engagement as potential distractions rather than assets. They've been trained to view individual star power as problematic rather than valuable. The Sanders situation exposes how the NFL uses media relationships to maintain narratives that serve institutional interests over obvious truths. Network executives who paid premium prices expecting Sanders-driven content remain silent about their losses, while media members continue framing his benching as reasonable rather than catastrophic mismanagement. The media manipulation succeeds because it creates the illusion of balanced coverage while systematically suppressing perspectives that threaten NFL power structures. Transcendent talents like Sanders get portrayed as impatient or entitled rather than victims of systematic suppression, while coaches and veterans who participate in talent destruction get framed as wise and principled. This propaganda machine ensures that even when the evidence overwhelmingly supports transcendent talents, the narrative remains controlled by those who benefit from maintaining the existing hierarchy. The NFL's final phase in destroying college superstars involves comprehensive institutional gaslighting designed to make transcendent talents question their own abilities and worth. The Shedeur Sanders situation reveals this psychological warfare in devastating detail, showing how the league uses systematic reality distortion to break down players who threaten established hierarchies. The gaslighting begins with contradictory messaging. Kevin Stefanski claims the Browns do what the players need while simultaneously denying Sanders any meaningful opportunities to prove himself. When pressed about Sanders' status, Stefanski's responses become increasingly evasive. "We'll make that call in a couple of days," and try to every single year make decisions based on what the guys need. These aren't answers, they're psychological manipulation designed to make Sanders question whether his obvious readiness is actually obvious. The institutional gaslighting extends to performance evaluation. Despite Sanders consistently making throws others cannot attempt with armed talent, that transcends scheme, system, situation, coaching staff insists he needs development. Defensive backs privately acknowledge difficulty covering receivers when Sanders throws due to his velocity, accuracy, anticipation, that create impossible disadvantages, yet the official narrative remains that he's not ready for game action. The NFL has perfected the art of using objective metrics to support subjective conclusions. Every analytical measurement favors Sanders starting immediately: completion percentage, yards per attempt, quarterback rating, expected points added all indicate elite performance. Sports scientists studying Sanders' biomechanics find optimal efficiency, minimal injury risk, elite athletic markers, with every physical assessment indicating readiness. Yet the institutional response remains that he needs more time. The gaslighting campaign particularly targets the player support system. Sanders' teammates recognize his talent and privately rally around him, with several offensive players allegedly offering to yield starting positions if it helps Sanders play. But the institutional messaging suggests this support is misguided or premature, making Sanders question whether his teammates' recognition of his abilities reflects reality or wishful thinking. The most damaging aspect involves turning the player's greatest strengths into perceived weaknesses. Sanders' massive social media following, record jersey sales, and unprecedented fan engagement get framed as distractions or pressure rather than assets. The institutional narrative suggests that his cultural relevance somehow disqualifies him from football success, making him question whether his transcendent appeal is actually a liability. The NFL uses veteran voices to amplify the gaslighting. When Joe Flacco suggests Sanders needs to handle boredom and monotony and fight through frustration, he's not offering support, he's reinforcing institutional messaging that Sanders' expectations are unreasonable. The league weaponizes veteran credibility to make transcendent talents question their own assessment of their readiness and value. The gaslighting succeeds because it operates through seemingly reasonable channels. Coaches claim to prioritize development, veterans offer wisdom about patience, and media members frame systematic suppression as prudent evaluation. The transcendent talent finds themselves isolated, questioning their own perceptions while everyone around them reinforces narratives that serve institutional interests. The Sanders situation reveals how the NFL has perfected psychological warfare designed to break down college superstars before they can threaten established hierarchies. By making transcendent talents question their own reality, the league maintains control over players who should be revolutionizing the sport. The evidence is overwhelming. The NFL has developed a systematic playbook to destroy college superstars who threaten their control structure, and Shedeur Sanders represents their latest victim. From isolation protocols that separate stars from their power base, to economic hostage strategies that weaponize revenue against talent, to veteran protection rackets that enforce hierarchical submission, every element of Sanders' treatment follows this established pattern. The 96% ratings collapse when Sanders was benched wasn't coaching incompetence, it was the inevitable result of a system designed to humble transcendent talents. Joe Flacco's psychological manipulation, Kevin Stefanski's institutional gaslighting, and the media's narrative control all serve the same purpose: maintaining NFL power structures against players who arrive with too much influence and independence. But here's what the NFL doesn't understand: the Sanders effect has already exposed their biggest lie. Fans follow talent, not franchises. Individual star power drives revenue, not organizational loyalty. The league's war against college superstars isn't just morally wrong, it's economically suicidal.